At LSI, we don't just follow trends, we help shape the future. Welcome to Behind the Win, the podcast where we break down the biggest moves in tech, innovation, leadership, and government contracting. Here at LSI, we're bringing you exclusive conversations with the minds behind groundbreaking advancements, disruptive strategies, and industry-defining wins. From retail to tech, defense to government solutions. This is where you get the insights to stay ahead. Let's go behind the win.
Welcome back to Behind the Win. Today's conversation is about something every business owner feels but not always knows how to navigate: regulation, policy, and having a voice in the system. We're talking about what it actually takes to cut through the red tape and create an environment where small businesses can grow and compete. Joining me today is Trent Staggs, Regional Advocate for the U.S. Small Business Administration Office of Advocacy, representing Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota, and South Dakota. In this role, Trent serves as a direct voice for small businesses, working to influence policy, reduce regulatory burden, and make sure business owners are heard at the federal level. He also brings experience as the former mayor of Riverton, Utah, giving him a unique perspective from both local leadership and national advocacy. Trent, welcome to Behind the Win. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks. Good to be with you.
We're excited. So you're in a unique position. You are hearing directly from small businesses across multiple states that you represent.
Yeah.
What are you seeing right now? And maybe just in terms of like their biggest challenges or where they're feeling the most pressure, et cetera.
Yeah, we had a great opportunity to travel the country, visit all these states. Advocacy themselves. Yes, I have a 6-state region, but we've been to all 50 states. We've hosted hundreds of roundtables, what we call red tape roundtables, and talked to over 12,000 small business owners and stakeholders. And consistently we're hearing access to capital, workforce development, and then of course regulation. And that's where our office really digs in, is on the regulatory front. And there's no shortage there. I mean, I call it a target-rich environment, right? Because the prior administration, put in some $2 trillion worth of regulations, and over 300 million paperwork hours for small business owners to comply with. So there's a lot of things there, people to talk about, and try to really roll back regulation, the burden on small business.
So, and maybe we step back for listeners. We gave in your intro a little bit about the states you guys cover, but maybe tell what your office does. And I think it's even super cool that you have been appointed, because with Utah being small, like number one in small businesses in the entire nation for how many years in a row now. So, but tell them a little bit about what your office does.
Well, the SBA, so we're part of the U.S. Small Business Administration, but under the Office of Advocacy, we have a unique role. We're charged to be the voice of small business across all federal agencies. And we do that largely by helping them identify and eliminate burdensome regulation. And this is something that has really started at the top through the direction of President Trump. He's issued a number of executive orders that have talked about the focus on deregulation. It's a top 3 priority for him. Deregulation, onshoring, manufacturing here in the country, and then tax reform, tax relief. So deregulation, as a business person himself, he understands the onerous burden that regulation can place on small businesses, that it is truly a cost. And, when you talk about trillions of dollars in new regulations coming in just the prior administration, that is definitely the case. And then with our administrator, Kelly Loeffler at SBA, she has adopted this wholeheartedly, as have a lot of the other cabinet level folks and agency heads, where they want to be able to look for areas where we can cut regulations, we can modify regulations and rules that become less burdensome. So she issued a day one memo that said, we're going to focus on this. It's a directive of the president, and we're going to create a deregulatory strike force. So that's another name for us. I like to tell my kids I work as part of a special teams, special strike force, and we go after regulations.
That's great. And I mean, I think people will love to hear this, especially because some hear the, information or misinformation of like this administration doesn't care about small businesses, right? Taking away 8As or doing things like that. So you guys are looking out for the small business.
100%. And we don't want to just, we go out to businesses, we conduct the roundtables that we just described, because we want to meet businesses where they are, but we don't just want to hear from them and then have, that was a great meeting, right, and nothing comes of it. We want to actually take what they tell us and work with our team to help effectuate the change that they're asking for. So that's
something actionable. Yeah.
Yeah. And it takes a lot of work on the part of our team. Wherever the regulatory body is that's in charge of promulgating or enforcing that rule or regulation, we have relationships with, albeit the FDA, the EPA, whatever that might be. We want to be able to advocate on behalf of small businesses and illustrate changes that we feel they should make. And given, again, the direction of the president, where he set kind of that tone and tenor at the top, hey, we need to be looking for deregs. One of his executive orders was for any new regulation you agencies issue, you've got to get rid of 10. And that's unprecedented, right, in government. So it's great to be in that environment. That means that more often than not, we've got agencies that are cooperative with us, and they're issuing requests for information with our team, wanting us to help them identify regulations that they can eliminate. And I think we're closer to 100 to 1 right now in terms of regulations we're cutting versus establishing.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. And having my team and I being a part of one of the roundtables last year, I mean, we like it because I think in prior ones, and this isn't saying anything because we love it. We love lots of people at the SBA, but it's that at point people get defensive, right? And I think that's what we loved is we were saying things and you're like, well, why? Tell me about it. Or asking questions and not getting defensive, as in just like, hey, where's the red tape that I can help remove? So we appreciate that for sure.
100%. Thank you. We appreciated you participating in that roundtable, as we did all small businesses. And that's really the thing that I hear constantly is we actually felt heard. We felt like for the first time, perhaps, we were feeling like you really were trying to get at the root of what the issue is and how we might be able to make change.
Yep. Agreed. So you've talked a lot about the regulation, and I think it's definitely something everyone's talking about, but few don't understand. So, and really how that works behind the scenes. Yeah. But what is if you guys had to choose 3, or what are your top ones of deregulation stuff that you guys are working on that you are constantly hearing?
Yeah,
that you can share.
That's a great question. And first and foremost, I got to say that in the first year of this administration, Advocacy was responsible for eliminating over $110 billion in regulatory compliance costs off the backs of small business. So that was something you can go to our website, advocacy.sba.gov, and you can see. But we also have a most wanted, and you can see that list as well that's being curated based upon interaction we've had at roundtable events, just like the one you attended. So
you guys are keeping a tally. You're keeping your queue or your pick list.
Yes, sure. Absolutely.
I love that, and transparency.
Yeah, and we're hearing, throughout the region in particular, the aerospace and defense, we've got CMMC, which is a big issue we're still working on.
We just have a whole room over here I could walk in.
Yeah.
It's so crazy, right?
We've got something we're going to be, I think we'll be able to communicate shortly on that front.
Good.
I've heard a lot about diesel emissions, regulations tied to that, grazing, beef, cattle industry, meat processing, critical minerals, and manufacturing in particular, permitting with the SPEED Act now that we were supporters of, getting the time to get out of all the permitting. That is something that we've heard a lot about too. But some of these rules and regulations are hundreds of billions of dollars in impact, and that's where we have the most.
And does impact mean like that's what it takes to keep them being enforced? And the money behind that.
That is the cost of compliance to the businesses and therefore our economy of having to abide by those regulations. Wow. It's massive. It really is. A good chunk of our GDP doesn't really go to anybody other than it's sucked into a black hole of government just to comply with these rules and regulations.
Where have you seen regulation help, and where does it start to hurt?
Yeah. Well, I think I'll back up for a moment because I wanted to say that these rules and regulations are promulgated or brought into being by agencies that are unelected, right? And therein lies the problem largely. We are successful. It's so difficult to get things through Congress today that we are very successful when we can work directly with the agency. And it's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing that we can make progress and change. They're willing to change right now. But the bad thing is if an administration changes, it could also change because Congress, in my view, has given far too much. They've abdicated too much of their responsibility to unelected bureaucracies. And that's where our office has been supportive of changes like the REINS Act, REINS, which is to rein in. If an agency makes a rule that has more than $100 million impact to the economy or to business, that rule has to go back to Congress and they actually have to vote on it. How great is that? Right. That's the way it should be. So lawmakers are on the hook for these rules and regulations that really have the binding effect of law. They're on the hook for those. And that's the difficult thing, is that they've abdicated so much of this to rulemaking agencies to come up with these. And the Code of Federal Regulations is a great example. What started out at a few thousand pages back in the 1950s is some 200,000 pages today. Those books that have all these rules and regulations in it, it's really skyrocketed. And that's, to your question, and that's one of the biggest, I think the biggest challenges is that you've got these rulemaking bodies that just create these rules that have such a huge impact. In our office, we're supposed to advocate for business and small businesses and say, wait a minute, the Regulatory Flexibility Act that stood up our office says you need to show that there isn't a disproportionate impact, these rules that you're saying need to be in place on business, on small businesses. And most agencies are just rubber stamping them. We call them phantom certifications. The overwhelming majority of these rules are just almost rubber stamped. And they never go through the process that law requires. And that's where our office can also be effective, is to say, wait a minute, even though there might not be a current rule out there under consideration, we can, with the help of the agencies, we can go back and we can say, this has impact. You guys didn't certify it properly. And let's try to make a change.
And I think, I love that you say that, because in business, right, in industry, it's the risk versus the reward for sure. Yeah. But with saying, what's the impact, and they have to go back. We have committees that it's like, I can't spend, if I spend over $100,000 in IT, our team's got to go back and talk to the board or whoever and say why and what it is. So I think that that's great accountability for them. Like, hey, what you just thought you passed is actually costing us, a boatload of money.
Yeah. And it really, the REINS Act, also the Prove It Act, Prove It, would also empower our office, the SBA Office of Advocacy, to even be more effective than we are today. It's kind of similarly, they would require that agencies have to justify and prove it, why they need those regulations, and they aren't, in fact, burdensome on small business. And a small business can come and get relief right out of the gate. They don't have to prove that it's overly burdensome. It's just the other way around with the Prove It Act.
Yeah.
They require the agency to come back and prove that they aren't overly burdensome on small business. So those two pieces of legislation, if actually passed by both houses, I think one has been passed out of the House and not the Senate, and vice versa. If we could get both of those passed, that would actually help stop this proliferation of rules and regulations that are so costly on businesses, and prevent, the uncertainty. That's what businesses need too, from one administration to the next.
So if I'm a business owner, how do I make my voice heard, or what's the best way they get in contact really with your team or you, and how to make that voice count?
Yeah, they can reach out to one of the advocates. The president has appointed 10 advocates across the country. We all have a geographic region. So they could reach out to one of us, or they can also call a red tape hotline. So if they go to advocacy.sba.gov, that was something we also created in our first year. And Congress has actually reauthorized that. They love that. The ability for somebody just to call an 800 number at any time and leave a message on, hey, this is a regulation that's impacting my business. This is a pain point for me. Whether it's a dollar pain point or just a time waste pain point, because you got to go and fill out yet another form. We want to hear from businesses. And so there's multiple ways that they can go ahead and bring that to our attention. We also send out requests for virtual roundtables that people can participate with. In fact, we had one on CMMC not too long ago.
Okay.
And other things that might be really specific to your industry.
Do you find that that you're hearing some of the same complaints, or are they very singular and it's just about what, kind of siloed to what they're doing, or kind of both?
We get a lot across the spectrum, but I think there's a lot of small businesses are experiencing many of the similar, pain points. And if you go to our most wanted list, that's again how we're aggregating that.
Is that between the 10 of you in the U.S.? You guys are kind of coming up with that list.
Yes, across the country.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is the biggest misconception about influencing policy?
Probably that it can't be done. I'm just one person. There's nothing I can do. But I tell you, I've been in this chair now or this role for a year, and I've seen people's stories make a difference. And I've given a couple of different examples. One was a 6th-generation rancher in southern Utah, northern Arizona that, because we have such a large percentage of federal lands in the western states, wanted to be able to change the way that grazing rules and regulations were enforced on federal lands. And being a roundtable participant and then going and speaking directly with secretaries like Secretary Rollins and also Secretary Burgum of the Interior, because you got BLM and U.S. Forest Service that are under different departments, and Kelly Loeffler, SBA administrator, and then meeting with the president. I mean, this is somebody that I know. He sends me a picture of him in the Oval with President Trump saying, I can't believe we talked about these rules and regulations to the president. It can really make a difference. And also in our area, we have a lot of truck transportation outfits. We also have a lot of farmers and ranchers that rely on diesel engines, and the diesel emission fluid sensor requirement that EPA, the end of March, Secretary Zeldin, working with the EPA, we were able to get them to rescind the requirement for the DEF or DEF sensors on vehicles that would put them into what they call a limp mode or deratement. And that was causing all kinds of problems for the farmers and truckers and, you name it. And so we've had a couple of really, I think, decent sized wins just right out of the gate. And we're just getting started, because if, again, go look at that most wanted, we've got a lot more to go.
Well, and I think that this is good because even myself being uneducated when it comes to when I've always heard deregulation, right? I think in our head, it's a misconception that people think like, oh, this is just going to mean that businesses are going to screw us over as consumers. And this means that we're not going to have, but really, I mean, all the examples you've mentioned, I'm like, kind of like, yeah, no shit. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? Like, absolutely. Why wouldn't we do that? And so I think that that's eye-opening for sure.
It is. And to that point, I mean, not all regulation is bad, right? There are certain guardrails that maybe it is proper for government to be involved and put those up for consumer protection or others. But when you look at just the sheer volume of regulation,
absolutely,
you know that we've gone overboard. It is, it's unbelievable. I mean, the OSHA heat rule, for example, is citing that certain shade structures need to be in place at a temperature level in Arizona even when the sun isn't there, they're requiring that be in place. That defies common sense and logic.
Right.
And so where we have the ability to get in and help modify some of these rules and regulations or to eliminate them altogether, it only makes sense. Let's take that burden off the business person who ultimately is passing costs on to the consumer. I mean, with the diesel emission fluid issue, for example, it doesn't better at all our air quality. And it actually adds thousands of dollars more to the average consumer, because there's on average 5 or 6 diesel truck trips to get a product from it being manufactured, say, to the shelf. And in the case of food, that's even more problematic when you're increasing the cost of foodstuffs for some trivial piece of regulation that really is outdated.
Interesting. Okay, so you've led at the city level, and from my city where I grew up, Riverton, Utah.
Best city in the state of Utah?
Yes.
Maybe the country?
I love it. I'm lived there 28 years. What did you learn as mayor that shapes how you're approaching your role now in the SBA?
That's a great question. I think one thing is to meet people where they are, to be willing to listen to them. I was shocked, actually, at how many times I was told as a mayor, you are the first one to talk to me. Because I would see people post something online or make a comment, and I'd say, you can always come in and talk. So it was really, and I had a lot of people that would just on their own come in and or reach out to me, and oftentimes they didn't expect to get a response. And so to see that so many constituents felt kind of deflated, defeated, that they didn't even think their government was listening or would listen to them. That was, I didn't expect that, because you and I would think, well, of course they're going to listen to me. I'm a resident, I'm a constituent, but so many feel it just felt overlooked.
Right.
But if a local leader can do that, can actually visit with people to hear them out, try to understand where they're coming from, and then explain why actions were taken, that is very, very helpful. It's healthy. That's what I think our republic is all about. And having that as a skill set, I think bringing it in to this role at Advocacy, because that's what we're charged to do most of the time, is to sit there and actually go out, interact with businesses, and try to understand what the challenges are that they're facing.
That's great. Do you see yourself, I mean, right now it's this role, do you see yourself going back into really that politics again?
Yeah, you're really giving me some a gotcha question here right now. It depends. I mean, I served for 12 years in municipal government, and now we're serving in the Trump administration here this past year. My wife and my family and I are really accustomed to that. And to the extent that we can be of service in another capacity, we would definitely take a look at that. And one also likes to think that, all right, I think we've developed a decent reputation, and to have spent 12, 13 years in, say, a certain industry, for example, you don't want to maybe just ignore that going forward and not be open to opportunities that might present themselves. So I think depending on the opportunity, sure.
Right.
We're used to it.
Yeah.
But it has to be right.
Yeah.
And you know who the boss is in our family. Yeah. So she has to agree to it.
I love it. And I do like that you say, you'd see someone's comments, because I would say Riverton, and I followed it, right? You went on social media when a lot of people didn't, and the cities didn't, right? And so you guys were responding to comments and doing stuff like that. So I think that that's so cool, that being on that leading edge of it, and that someone's like, oh, I'm going to post this. And yeah, you have the ones that are stragglers, outliers that are always going to complain or something. But then to think, oh yeah, the mayor just saw it and actually responded and invited me in, I think is awesome.
Yeah, it's too bad that some communities really, they have a real reactionary response. Yep. I intended to be proactive. We, for the very first time, created the communications department and office at our city. That was one of my very first hires, was the director of communications, because we needed, I felt like, to communicate with residents on what we were doing, why we were doing it. Absolutely. And give them a forum.
That's awesome. What gives you optimism right now?
I think what gives me optimism is seeing that the entrepreneurial spirit and ecosystem is alive and well. Definitely in our state, especially in our state of Utah, but across my region, across the country, I think you're seeing a resurgence. Some of it has to do with, trepidations around AI, and I'm seeing more and more people participate at startup events. Mm-hmm. And, the SBA recently launched a pitch competition on $1 million. I thought that was a brilliant idea.
I know. I sent it to my team. I was like, guys, we've partaken of the capital, and we're a small business still. Yeah. So let's do it. That's awesome.
So I'm seeing that more and more. And I just have a personal belief, and this is maybe going to espouse my ideology. Should come as no surprise given this president that I'm working for. But mm-hmm. I believe that the higher level of entrepreneurism we can have in this country, the more conservative we will be, the more self-reliant, self-determined, less reliant then and determined on government, right? Which I think we need to be, and our founders were naturally leery of. They didn't want big government. They wanted less government because they realized the more government you have and the more it's dictating in the lives of individuals, the less freedom and liberty we have. And so that's a personal belief. And when you see at the founding of this country, 50 to 60% of people were self-employed. And you think about it, they were fishermen, farmer, mercantilists, small shop owners. It went to 30% at 1900, 15% post-World War II. We're sitting around 10% of the workforce today that's self-employed. The more we can get back to that self-employed, self-determined, workforce ideology, then I think the country is definitely moving in the right direction. And this being the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, I mean, that also gives me a lot of optimism.
Absolutely.
That this country and this experiment has endured that long, and that we hopefully will have a much longer life ahead of us for, our kids and grandkids and everybody.
That's awesome. Okay, I got this lightning round. I got some quick hits for you.
Oh, no.
Okay, so first thing that comes to mind, one word to describe small business today.
Dynamic.
Okay. Biggest barrier right now.
Oh, I got to say regulation. That's the role.
I was like, I think I know the answer to that one now. Biggest opportunity.
Biggest opportunity. Oh, I know it's supposed to be a lightning round. I'm screwing this one up.
No, you're not. And I think for everything you've just said, right, is if your biggest barrier is regulation, I think your biggest opportunity is it's simple deregulation of that for sure.
Biggest opportunity, yeah, I'd have to say getting deregulation, and I was going to say AI perhaps too, because I see that as a massive opportunity. We don't know enough about it, but it is.
And I'm going to pause in the lightning round for a sec because I do want to ask you. You brought up AI is a great question. Do you see people? And we talk to tons with that's our clients, different stuff too. It's are they nervous? They're I know a lot of people are, like you said, with different things, uneducated about it. But what do they think about AI? I mean, are they embracing it? Are they nervous? What are the small businesses thinking?
I see a lot of small business owners embracing it.
That's great.
I went to high school with a friend that has his own business, and he is just amazed at what he can do with a, say, Perplexity, max subscription at just a couple $100 a month. He can end up creating tools that can make him a much better manager and just make his company so much more efficient. And so there's always creative destruction. And we know that, his comment directly was, if you're a back-end software developer, I'd be a little anxious because a lot of this can be done through AI, but at the same time, there's going to be a lot of other opportunities that we hope, right, is a net positive for the job market, and just in terms of efficiencies and being able to drive business, increase productivity just exponentially. Could be right there. I mean, we're on the cusp of it. I think in the next 5 years, we're going to see a lot.
And I think that's great that you explain it. It helps him be a better, because someone has said too, most recently, like AI doesn't mean you're getting rid of jobs. It's to enhance it, right? And so him being like, oh, it's going to help me do X, Y, and Z better. He's not saying it's going to help me eliminate A, B, and C to do that.
Right.
So that's great. Okay, 2 more on lightning round.
Okay.
Best advice for business owners.
Best advice. Know there are a lot of tools available to help you succeed. I mean, the Small Business Administration, I'll say they have all of their loan suite that is very it's very inexpensive capital comparatively.
Absolutely.
And they also have organizations like SCORE and like SBDC that offer a lot. There's a lot of great chambers that offer similar programs and other things to help businesses put together plans and really succeed, and know that there's organizations like ours out there that are looking to really get roadblocks and regulatory roadblocks out of the way. So I think a lot of times people have a great idea and they want to go ahead and start, and that's great. We don't want to impede that at all. Get going. But probably the best advice is there's a lot of organizations out there that can help, and many of them are at no cost to you as the entrepreneur. Mm-hmm.
That's great. Okay, it's Jen. Sorry, you can cut that out. I just told her to tell us when we have 5 minutes left because they're so back to back today that I was like, come and knock and let us know. Okay, last one. One thing policymakers need to hear more often.
Well, policymakers, i.e. Congress that we're dealing with, I think they need to hear more about the painful impacts of regulation on just those stories that we're hearing in advocacy. That is our role, is to try to get those to the agencies and to policymakers so they understand the real world impacts of regulation, and to understand that a lot of these rules and regulations, I hope they understand, aren't even voted on by Congress, but they are given and just created by these rulemaking bodies. And so, again, things like the REINS Act and the Prove It Act, I wish that Congress, would go ahead and pass so that the regulatory framework can really be reined in.
Absolutely. So, Trent, thank you for your important conversation today.
Thank you.
Tell our listeners one more time. You mentioned some SBA sites, but what's the main one they can go to just find resources, see that set list, everything like that?
Yeah, SBA.gov, or ours is advocacy.sba.gov. So advocacy.sba.gov. You can see the red tape hotline that's permanently across the top banner. At any page you go to that site, our most wanted list is on the homepage, and all of our contact information for your advocate. You can call the hotline or reach out to one of us if there's a pain point, related to regulation.
That's awesome. Thanks for giving us a clear picture of how the system works and for being here today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.